the orange map. Yes, okay, so this is the map. Here, let me, here, I'm gonna take a screenshot, and we're gonna open this up. I'm gonna explain stuff to you guys, like how this can relate to LoL. All right, so here, let me just get this image. All right. All right. Ooh, R. Okay, let me do this. All right. So here's what would happen. Okay. We're gonna use blue in hopes that, well, does blue show up well? Blue kind of shows up well. Red doesn't show up very well. Black? No, black doesn't show up. White? We could use white. Okay, let's use white. So here's what happens on this map. Okay, so if you're unfamiliar with StarCraft 1, there's 3 races: Protoss, Terran, and Zerg. Protoss has very strong, durable units that they deal a lot of damage. But they're very, very, very reliant on synergy. And they're very reliant on how you attack into fights and like concaves and your usage of like shuttle bombs. Shuttle bombs is like, imagine you can Pantheon drop, like, like that. I mean, shuttle bombing is like Pantheon dropping. You have to do it right. You don't want to be out of position. You don't want anything like that. Or it's like Tom Kenschulting or, something like that into the opponent. So anyways, on Troy, what happens is if you kill one of these assimilators, only very certain units can actually fit through. So imagine if in League of Legends, champions had like different avatar sizes. And there's like 100, which is like Teemo, like Teemo, Tristana, whatever. And then maybe there's like 200, which is like a very skinny champion or something like Zyra or like Nami, except they're obviously much bigger. And then like 300, which is like maybe a normal unit size, so like Victor or something like that. And then you have like 400, which is like maybe like Mundo or something, or like Darius or whatever. And this obviously keeps going on, and then you'll have a gigantic unit, 800 or something, and that's gonna be like a Mordekaiser or a Malphite or whatever. So anyways, with all that being said, if you kill... Oh, what the fuck? I can't delete this. Okay. So anyways, if you kill one of these assimilators, only 100 or 200 or like 100 size units can fit through this crack. If you kill both assimilators, you can't enter the base. The terrain actually just collapses. So imagine it like Dragon, like the ramp that leads into Dragon or something from blue. You could kill something that would be like, like a tower, and the tower would collapse and close off the path. Like that's what this would do. And so if you kill one, only like Teemos and like Tristanas can still actually, wiggle their way through. And if you kill both, nothing in the game can actually go through it. And in StarCraft 1, there was nothing that could blink or, make, like a dash or anything. So there was this style of Protoss called Refugee Toss. And the reason that it was called Refugee Toss is they would take a lot of expansions. And there was a unit called the Carrier, and in professional play there was a critical mass of carriers that was considered game over. If the Protoss player was able to acquire 8 carriers, it was considered almost impossible for a professional Terran player to actually beat the Protoss. But the problem is there's so many timing attacks that, the Terrans had honed over the years that if Protosses did try to go for carrier, they would be so vulnerable on other fronts that the Terran could launch a timing attack and kill the Protoss before they could reach critical mass, which was 8 carriers, and just win the game. Now, obviously, you had to be really good. You had to be a professional Protoss in order to micro them, in order to beat the Terran player. But that, that was for the professional level of play. So Refugee Toss, what they would do is they would do a few things. They could do a very aggressive opening against the Terran player, so they could do like a 10-15 gate, which would be like a very aggressive lane swap or something with like, imagine like a Jax or like a Tryndamere or a Yi or like anything that you think of that is hyper aggressive that is meant to destroy buildings. This is how I envision it. And then what you'll do to the Terran player, so let's say the Terran player is here, okay? You'll come with, Jax or 4 people, and you'll kill both of these assimilators. So now the Terran is trapped inside of his base. Okay, and now technically he's safe from you, and he can expand here using like a dropship or something. And this base is relatively hard for you to attack, considering it requires air. in order to get into it. But because these two assimilators are broken, the Terran is slowed down on all fronts. And so normal timing attacks that he would be able to do to you no longer exist, and so everything is sort of set backwards. And because he's set backwards, you're able to be a little bit more greedy. So now, think of it like you did this timing attack, and now you're going for something really greedy, like you're going for like a tier Roa build or something. Now, in a situation where the opponent would be able to, do a certain lane swap and attack your Roa tier because you're still too weak, you don't have the Roa stacks, your tier isn't really charged up. It's sort of like attacking a Rise, and we saw that in like season 4 or something with the double tower attack where you do 4 people to 1 lane and you kill both the towers, and then Rise is kind of sitting there like, fuck, you know what I mean? And he doesn't really come out into the game until like 25 minutes, which is generally about 6 to 7 minutes, even 8 minutes sometimes later than he would normally wake up and arrive to the game, with his Roa and the Archangel staff. So this is a lot similar to attacking a Rise. And so now what happens is because the game has been slowed down and the Terran can't do these traditional timing attacks, you don't actually need to invest into the same defense that you normally would in order to resist the Terran's timing attack. And so because of that, you can immediately now go into carrier play. And you have a normal base. You're still completely fine. Your units can still move out, and there's no collapse terrain. It's just, it kind of hurts the Terran. And so now you start expanding. And what you're going to do when you're playing Refugee Toss is you're going to take an expansion down here, you're going to take an expansion up here, you're going to take this expansion, and then you're going to take like this expansion. And what you're going to do is you're going to kill all of the assimilators. Because remember, you are using like a super heavy split push. You have like a Jax and a Tryndamere on the same exact team. And so basically, the 8 carriers in this situation is 3 inhibitors. If they can get all 3 inhibitors down, you lose the game. And so what you're going to do is you're going to bust down all these assimilators, and then the Terran can't use his ground force of like Goliaths, which is the traditional way to fight back against carriers, and they can't walk through these bases. So now the Terran has to invest into a unit that is kind of expensive, the dropship, in order to pick up his Goliaths and drop them over the terrain so that he can actually kill the expansions. All the while, you're flying around the map. So what ends up happening is that the Terran invests into these dropships, and the Terran's army is really strong because you still need to amass that huge amount of carriers in order to fight them. And so what happens is the Terran comes to top left and they kill it. And as soon as they kill that base, you take a base here. And then they see that you killed that base, and they run down to stop that base, and they kill this base, and then you expand up here. And then they see that you're taking this base, and then before they even attack this base, you throw up 2 more nexuses. You throw up a nexus here, and you throw up a nexus here. And all of these bases are not going to have a lot of income coming in from them. But the problem is you have so many bases that the income actually, it is piling in, even though each base as a standalone is technically not that valuable. It's like trying to kill a Teemo or something. He's already 0-6, and you don't really get a lot of gold from him. So what ends up happening is the Terran player is left, like, literally just, he goes to point A, and then he runs down to point B, and then he tries to go back up to point A, and all the meanwhile, he's losing units because the carriers are sniping down the dropships and stuff. And so the Terran player is also simultaneously trying to defend his expansions from the assault that you can launch, because you have, like, spellcaster units that are not as heavy of an investment. It's like High Templars or something, and they cast Psionic Storm. So it's like, imagine trying to tower dive a Zyra, or imagine trying to break a Ziggs, sieging his tower. Like, they have these units that are casting Ziggs ultis like every few seconds, and that's really hard to defend against because you never have minions to actually siege with, and it's really hard for you to stabilize an economy. So this is what the Protoss player will do, and so you keep running around the map trying to get to all his expansions, but it's really hard for your units to break in. And then eventually what ends up happening is, lo and behold, the Refugee Toss, where he just keeps running around and transferring bases and you can never really catch his bases, shows up with the 8 carriers and the game is over. And so lane swaps in League are very, very, very similar to Refugee Toss versus Terran. And I think that there's a lot of beauty in it because the Terran player can stop the Refugee Toss. Like he can drop vultures over here and, you know, lay spider mines, which is going to slow down the Protoss. He can, you know, do these really wonky plays with wraiths and snipe the observers, which is sort of like, imagine Tryndamere having to go for like a split push on the bottom side of the map and he has no wards. So imagine like the Terran players like investing into a lot of pink wards and constantly keeps killing Tryndamere's wards. So he doesn't know the exact moment that he actually needs to go back, and so he's restricted to the vision that he does have, similarly to how carriers are restricted to staying around their photon cannons, because otherwise they're going to get killed by the wraiths of the Terran. And so anyways, this makes sense in my mind, and I hope that I explained it before. But yeah, so this is like a split push in League. So it's kind of nice.